Legal.
Today we are joined by Dr. Rogers Matikite, who is the founding senior partner at Matikite Attorneys at Law. He is a legal practitioner, academic, and arbitrator. He has vast experience in corporate governance, commercial law, civil procedure, dispute resolution, and labor law. He is a deputy dean of the University of Zimbabwe, where he was once a lecturer. He has several publications, books, and articles, and is widely respected for his commitment to justice and knowledge in the legal fraternity.
Thank you so much, Super J.
Thank you for having me.
Today's episode is the first of a segment we like to call Tradition on Trial. We examine whether Zimbabwean law reflects or erodes our cultural identity. Today we begin with the big question: can our legal system coexist with our tradition, or is one always forced to give way? But before we get into that, what inspired you to pursue a career in law?
Oh, thank you so much for me. You find that it's so funny that I never wanted to become a lawyer before. In the first instance, I actually applied to become an accountant at University of Zimbabwe. But later on, University of Zimbabwe, they didn't give me the accounting in NAS. So eventually, I saw an offer letter say you should do law. Then later on, I decided to say, I think this is what I should do. But during the first semester, some cases happened in our law areas, which then required my intervention. And from that day, my mind changed and I said to now, I'm supposed to be a lawyer. And then that then inspired me to go ahead to.
Okay, no, thank you so much. And we know that out there's so many legal dramas out there. So just curious, if you watch any, could you pick a fictional lawyer to represent you, and why would you pick that person?
Oh, I like Harvey in States. Yeah, you find that most lawyers, they think that law is all about interpreting the statutes. It's all about being able to convince the other part from a legal point of view. But Harvey brings in another dimension, which is one thing that I like, being able to negotiate deals, being able to make the other party see things not from even a legal context, but from a broader social context, a real life situation. And I think that's one of the things that have made even the American system tick as a legal system. And I like that. It's one of the things that inspires me lots. And I think I can watch it the more way Harvey's all those episodes over and over again. I enjoy that.
Okay, so does that mean the TV shows we watch and real life is not too far off?
Yeah, it's not. They're home. Those are real issues that happen in life. And those are things that really we see every day.
Okay, now that's very interesting. Thank you. Now, on to the topic for today. We all know that the Zimbabwean legal system was inherited, and we can appreciate how it's responsible for various legal change and actualization of certain rights, like the outlawing of child marriages. But we can also see, we're also cognizant of the fact that this law was never designed for our culture in mind. So when our law challenges our traditions, what does that mean? Can we safely say that at the end of the day, our cultural identity is safe? Or have we already gone too far into globalization and legal modernization to go back?
Yeah, thank you very much. You found that one of the very important things that we see in terms of our law. It's basically more of a colonial law that we inherited. And one of the things that we'd see is that most of the underpinning principles of a colonial legal system were never meant to carry out the identity of the people there. This is the reason why you see there are quite a number of issues that sometimes public don't relate to. Because our law, even up from 1980, save for the judiciary that they tried through judgments and incorporate the customary law norms and values. But the law itself, if you extract it from 1891, you would see by and large was meant to, protect the settlers who were there to exploit the resources. It was meant to ensure that they got title to land, etc. You see, there's not much. I was actually laughing with another person saying to me, can you imagine your mining law protects mining rights over agrarian rights and the homestead rights? And I said, yes, because the colonial law that we inherited that we have not really reviewed much. So you'd find that through judicial interventions in our law, you see some of the our norms and values being enshrined and taken up and being preserved. But by and large, you should see that though this is a colonial war, more important is the legal development in terms of international law, which has brought a lot of changes. So you'd find apart from our own norms and values as a nation, we now have to also embrace the international values and norms. So there are things like should not kill, you should not do this. These are not like our honor, but they are national things. So to some extent, there's still a lot of work to be done in terms of making sure that those international norms, values, and our own norms, they are made together, they form our legal system. That's the only a way which we can then continue to uphold our values and norms and our culture. Because sometimes people confuses bad practices and traditions as our culture. No, our culture is Ubuntu that defines us. What is the value system we as Black people have, and there's nothing that is bad about that. And it actually makes the law more acceptable if it's incorporated into our system.
I do understand that. But, as a law student and also a Zimbabwean, you are, and the world is increasingly becoming global. We are taking points from other people. And so we have this, I understand what the law attempts to achieve. And for the most part, I even agree with it. But then you face an identity crisis. You're now in a space of, so what does it mean to be Zimbabwean if almost all Zimbabwean practices at some point are going to be removed and said they're unconstitutional? So what can I as a Zimbabwean rely on to say that's my identity if our law outlaws, in a sense, my identity?
Yeah, this is the reason why you see there is this call by the Attorney General of Law Review and the law revision. It allows us to bring the good we have into our laws. So clearly, this generation and next generation to come, one of the things that they have to look at is to say, what is it which is good in terms of our law? I'll give you a good example. In our culture, there is a value that says that you cannot hide behind a twig. In other words, uh, it's a principle that says if you commit something, you can then not argue and say, it's prescribed, it's this and that. These are our values, but they are good because what they are seeking to deal with, they are seeking to deal with the merits of a matter as opposed to the technicalities at the end of the day. But it's now that law a review exercise we should bring these principles into our law. When I was doing my PhD, one of the things that I discovered is that, for example, your procedural law is basically colonial, was made to restrict access to courts. And the more you apply it, it means you are preventing. But you remember, in our culture, you have principles like Morombo Munu. You don't need to be rich for you to get access to justice. Yeah. You just need to be able to walk to the king and then present yourself. So these are very valuable. They enhance access to justice, and you do need that. Some proverbs like usada kutingwarira, meaning to say don't try to be trickster. So these are things that we have as Zimbabweans, which we believe in, which defines our identity. That should also be carried into our law as we develop it. That kind of law will become acceptable, will become binding, will ensure that we have real development as opposed to issues of, people getting through and getting it via, the technicalities. So if you ask me, there is opportunity for us as Zimbabweans to build upon. It's not a one day, like in the University of Zimbabwe and access to justice. We are thinking of going into the rural areas, trying to codify common law principles, maybe customary law principles, which actually are the bedrock of our culture, so that we see what we can take forward. Some of the things, naturally, we evolve as a society. They are evolving principles in terms of which underpins our culture, and that makes us define who we are. Yes.
Okay, so what I'm understanding is that there are points where customary law and our law come to a space where they meet. And so those are the principles that we've sort of taken. So this means to further, you then wonder that the Constitution is the supreme law, meaning customary law falls under it. Yes. Should it not be the opposites to say, okay, well, in as much as we recognize that there are problematic things in the customary law, but ultimately, this is Zimbabwe. So, yes, we'll adopt those principles from our current legal system, but we make it also fit into customary law. And we say, at the end of the day, customary law presents.
Yeah. The most important thing is that scenario would work well when we were talking about the Lancaster Constitution of 1975, which was a negotiated document for Zimbabwe between the nationalists and the colonialists. But the 2013 Constitution was a product of our outreach there into the rural area, into the suburbs. So it actually defines the aspiration of the people. In other words, the people are saying what we have done when we talk about the presidents, when we talk about parliament, when we talk about Bill of Rights, when we talk about the organs of the state, for public spending, all those things, they are truly Zimbabwean. Yes, there's influence of the Western, but this is how we define ourselves at the highest level in terms of the law as Zimbabwe. This is what we believe in. So basically, you find that if then they say customary law shall be recognized, they shall be part of us, it means they believe what they have done is at the higher level already camouflaged with some principles of common. If you look at it on the values of in the Constitution, you can see that there is already a progression of recognizing that we as Zimbabweans have got certain things that we believe in, certain things that we want to be carried forward. So already what the Constitution has done is to try and then re-cement the position of the customary law and make sure that it's continued to be recognized. What is left is now to go down there and say, under which principles of customary law defines our culture, defines our being and norms, etc., which we should carry forward as laws. So we still have that chance and we can do that.
Do you think that kind of movement is happening right now, or has it sort of been halted? I mean, I think lots of people have that in mind. We all think about it. We do sit and think, no, we should. But is there any actual movement towards doing that?
Yeah, I think you find the problem, which I see is funding, which is lacking, but the various universities are taking these initiatives around this area, but it's the resources that are being put there. And I do believe, we are coming from a phase where we are now trying to look at the economic development, and as a result, some things they don't get enough funding. But I think in the next few years, it's an area after all things have done and dusted, where we are going to see more money being poured into, because that's what is going to define who we are. Like just the way Americans define who they are. In Saudi Arabia, they define who they are. In the UK. So you will see that happening, because no nation will develop unless its legal system speaks to its aspirations and values.
Oh, that's true. So what I'm understanding is that this is a discussion that we all need to be part of. Everyone, including people who are not necessarily part of the legal practice, they need to be involved. So what advice would you give to the general public about situations and matters like this?
Yeah, the most important point is that everyone is affected by the law, whether a lawyer or you're not a lawyer. In fact, if you're not a lawyer, you're affected more.
Yeah.
And the fact that law affects you more, it means you need to be at the forefront of knowing how the development is supposed to happen.
I hope you all feel encouraged to join the conversation and to make a difference in making our country identifiable by our principles and our tradition. Make sure you drop a comment and we hope to have you again on
Legal.